Good morning. We are going to call to order the code enforcement hearing in the city of Lake City, April 25th, 2023 at 11 a.m. We have published an agenda. We have no old business. We have new business, which is case number CE 23 0000004. Property owner Destiny Schofield Portal. Is Ms. Cordell here?
No, she's not.
Is anybody planning to speak with respect to this case? If you are, can you please raise your hand? Okay. What I'm gonna do is if you plan to speak, I'm only allowed to take sworn testimony, so I'm gonna ask you to raise your right hand and swear you in at this time. That's okay. If you plan to speak, raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes.
Thank you. First, I would like the city to present the case, and if you don't mind reviewing whether notice was provided properly under the code, what violations the city alleges occurred, the evidence in support of the violations, and what remedy you're seeking.
Yes, ma'am. On the date of January 18th of 2023, I opened the investigation at the address of 406 Southeast Monroe Street, property owner Destiny Schofield Cordell. I received a complaint from Ms. Vicky Walters complaining of trash and rubbish littering the property. Ms. Cordell was living on the premises with no water and electricity. Windows are broken out of the residence, and on the interior of the residence, there's a bunch of trash, and some of the floors are not there. And I could see mold on some of the walls of the interior of the house itself. On January, I did take photos of the property on the outside of the property. Back of the property looked like a basically a waste dump. On January 19th, I prepared a notice of violation and mailed it out certified on the same date for sanitation and public nuisance, and gave a compliance date of February 17th of 2023. Also on the January 19th, I notified the Department of Health to start an investigation. I spoke with Sally Ford. She sent Patrick Blanchett, he's one of the investigators for Department of Health, to start their investigation also. On January 17th, I also delivered a notice of violation to Ms. Cordell for those violations of sanitation and public nuisance. On February 21st of the same year, 2023, I re-inspected the property and there was no change to the property. At that same date, I hand-delivered a second notice of violation to Ms. Cordell for sanitation and public nuisance. On March 15th, I received another complaint from Ms. Vicky Walters that a generator was constantly running at this property, and 2 other people were residing at the residence with no water or electricity. This was verified by the city and Florida Power Light that does electricity for that location. That same day, I met with Patrick Blanchett, the Department of Health investigator on the property. He gave an abatement notice to Ms. Cordell for the no utilities to the residents. The generator was running on the property at the time when I was there. Ms. Cordell was on scene, and I found out that the generator was being utilized at that time to cook pizza rolls in the oven. At that time, I asked for an entry into the residence, but she refused. But that's where I could observe from the outside, the flooring of the residence, none being there on several rooms. Basically, at that time, I placed a placard of condemnation on the residence. Then on the 16th of March, I delivered a third notice of violation, which is hand delivered to Ms. Cordell. On April 3rd, I mailed out a notice of hearing to Destiny Schofield for this hearing that we're in today. The 24th of April, the notice of hearing was returned undeliverable to me. The third violation, I went into the International Property Maintenance Code for sanitation, which is 302.1 under that code, and City Ordinance 22-201, which is accumulation of weeds, rubbish, and other matter upon land prohibited as public nuisances, which was basically the dump in the back of her residence. I also went on International Property Maintenance Code 108.2, closing of vacant structures, and also International Property Maintenance Code 505.1, general, which pertains to plumbing. I also went to International Property Maintenance Code 601.2, which was responsibility. Under those codes, the 505.1 general is basically every sink, laboratory, bathtub, or shower, any type of utility fixtures. You have to have running water to that location for you to reside in that residence. Also, the same thing under the mechanical electrical code of having electricity for that residence also.
Mr. Zoba, when is the last time you visited the property?
The last time I visited was on the 24th of April, which was yesterday.
And what did you observe yesterday?
The house is still the same. There's no change to it at all. I did not take photos at that time. But there was no change to the property at all.
You still observe the same trash and debris in the front and backyards?
Front and backyard, yes ma'am.
I believe you said the notice of hearing was returned as undeliverable.
Correct.
So you sent it via certified mail?
No, I did not send it certified mail because I did not know where she was living at the time. And I did find out that she is incarcerated in the Columbia County Detention Center as of this date.
Okay, so you sent the notice of hearing via US mail?
Yes, via US mail.
You sent it to the property address?
Correct, 406 Southeast Monroe Street.
And how did you come to find out that the property owner, Ms. Cordell, is incarcerated?
I was notified by Ms. Mavis Georgialis that the Sheriff's Department picked her up.
And who is she?
She's,
Okay. Did you actually check the records at the jail?
yes, I went on Columbia County Jail View, and she is still incarcerated.
When you visited the property yesterday, did you observe whether anybody was present or living there?
No, I did not see anybody at all.
Were there any vehicles?
No.
Other than mailing the notice of hearing, did you publicly post this hearing otherwise?
Yes, downstairs on the first floor of City Hall.
And when was that posted?
Trying to think what day I posted it, I can tell you. April 12th. It was posted,
Just that day or continuously?
just in the whole time.
April 12th until today?
Yes, it still should be downstairs.
It appears from the materials for this case that there are other property owners. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Was there any attempt to notify the other property owners of these violations or the hearing today?
No, ma'am, I didn't.
Do you happen to know where the other property owners are located? I see Alice, Kimberly, Watson, Randall, Schofield, Judy, Jane, Bradley, also are property owners.
I know one of them resides in Fort White. I know Miss George Alice sent a letter a while back to, I'm not sure which lady it was.
Alice.
Alice,
Destiny's mother.
Destiny's mother, correct.
Mary also lives in that city, but I was unable to track her. And the mail Schofield, the last time I tracked him was in Milledgeville. I couldn't find anything on that.
Miss Watson, are you Miss Watson?
No, I'm Mavis George Alice.
Miss
I'm a
Alice?
complainant.
Okay.
Please.
I'll give you an opportunity to speak. I just want to be clear on the city's record and their position. And then I'll give you all an opportunity to speak. Mr. Suba, is there any reason why the city couldn't contact the other property owners? I'm inquiring because the one property owner is incarcerated, so obviously if I issue an order to clean up the property, she's not gonna be able to do so. And perhaps the other property owners, who, all of whom have an interest in the property, if they were noticed of the violations and notice of this hearing, that they may, be inclined to appear today and, clean up the property.
Yeah, I can send them a letter. That's basically what I can do at this point.
I mean, because ultimately, the city just wants the property cleaned up.
Yeah, we want the property cleaned up, or I don't think that the property is livable the way it stands now.
I understand. I do have a question about the alleged violations. I understand the city, is concerned about the property, that the utilities aren't turned on,
Correct.
both the electric and the water.
Yes.
And so as I read the code sections that are provided in the notice of violation, I didn't see where that was necessarily required to have the utilities turned on or the water turned on. I understand that it has to be connected, according to these code provisions to the public utilities. But I have to imagine that that it's pretty a regular occurrence where individuals are unable to afford their utilities and it gets shut off from time to time. And I just don't see how these code provisions address that. So maybe if you could direct me to what you're looking at. And I understand the issues with the structure itself and the trash and lacking the floor and the mold. But what I'm asking about specifically is just not being connected to the water and electric.
I thought I put it in here about the city ordinance.
So while Mr. Silva is looking for that, why don't we have whoever would like to speak come on up, if that's okay with you, Mr. Silva?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
I'll go first.
Okay, come on up to the microphone and if you could tell me your name and maybe spell it for me.
My name is Vicki Walters, Walters.
Okay, Ms. Walters, how do you spell your first name?
Vicki, Vicki.
And what is your address?
408.
422.
Okay,
I never write myself. 422 Southeast Monroe Street.
Is your property located near Ms. Cordell's?
The only thing that separates us is my driveway. I could go on and on and on. I've started this last year, and I've given her every opportunity to speak, and I've spoken to her. I've begged her before I take it any further, clean this place up, and she's not done anything. And the inside is worse than the outside, and I have pictures of it.
Did you bring those with you today?
It's on my phone in the car, yes, I have.
we furnish copies of those tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, Marshall has them now.
Yeah, I've got it. Get it in your packet.
Which one are they?
That's the ones I took.
Oh, yeah, I have those.
Yeah, those there.
What is that?
That's the bathtub. And That's in one of the rooms. There's of the room. Room itself.
Is, Mr. Silva, is the city seeking for the property to be cleaned up or it demolished?
Yeah, well, if they're able to clean it up, I would love to have it cleaned up, but I know at one time Miss Georgialis wanted to purchase the property.
Just so I can get it cleaned up.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead. I see the pictures
Yeah.
and the materials.
There's rodents that, I have pest control myself, but I also have my laundry room and my garage in the backyard. I'm afraid to go in the garage, open the door, I see rats scatter. And I know it's coming directly from that backyard. I mean, you can see a path almost. As far as her not having water, the stench is horrible. She hasn't had water for forever, not just on and off periodically. We're talking about for years. Where's she going to the bathroom? Where's, the sanitation is just, it's a bad health environment for anybody, let alone me living 20 feet from her.
Do you happen to know the other property owners and where they're located?
No, Mavis knows them better. She did more of the investigating side of, as far as trying to find them. I know that they have seen it. I've seen them over there, her mother and her, I think it's her aunt, but I can't swear to that. They don't even go inside, they sit in the car. I don't know what else to tell you. It's just, it's awful.
Thank you for being here and thank you for the photos and providing the information. Would you like to speak? And if you could just state and spell your name.
You'll have to spell it, yes. Mavis Georgialis, Mavis Georgialis.
Ms. Georgialis, where do you reside?
Diagonally across the street from this property at 223 Southeast Church Avenue.
And could you share with me what you've observed of the Ms. Cordell's property?
I've owned my property for almost 30 years. For at least the last 10 years, the property at 406 Monroe has been going downhill. And I began complaining to the city prior to Marshall's time with us. The prior code enforcement officer. Over that 10-year period, the complaints have been getting more frequent and worse, and more people such as Vicki have entered into the complaint cycle. Over the holidays, the boyfriend who has been residing in there with her came into my garage and stole supplies of food that I keep for hurricanes, water, miscellaneous tools, all kind of things. Later that same day, he came into my yard, drugged out, nude, and rolling around in the grass, scratching and moaning. I called the police and they came and got him. They asked if I wanted to file a warrant, and I said, why bother? We have filed warrant after warrant after warrant. And everybody is back on the street within 2 weeks anyway. Vicky later this year broke into a neighbor's house.
Not Vicky.
Not you, Vicky, not you, Vicky. Broke into a neighbor's house.
You mean Miss Cordell?
Yes. That neighbor filed charges against her. She was arrested. She fought the police. She was tased. She was hauled off. Within 2 weeks, she was back on the street again. She was sentenced to 5 years of probation. The judge let her out on probation. She never reported to the probation officer, so a probation officer swore out a warrant, and that's why she's currently in jail on that warrant. I tried to buy the property from her. I offered her money for it because the city seemed, and we also had notified the state health department, the regional health department in Gainesville. They said it's the city's problem. The city, even after numerous complaints, has been unable to get a handle on it. I tried to buy the property so I could have it cleaned up. When I went to get, and I took Miss Cordell with me. When I went to the title office and said, no, I'm gonna need a clean title on it. That's when we discovered that she was one of 4 owners on it. Her mother, her aunt, and her uncle also are on the property. I was able to track down her mother in Fort White. I sent her a letter. It was returned, no mail delivery at this address. So I paid the post office $10 to hand deliver it to that address. Her mother responded back to me and said she had not spoken with her brother or sister in years, but she was more than willing to dump the property, and she would make sure that Miss Cordell also agreed if I could track down her brother and sister. I turned all of this information over to the city. In the meantime, Miss Cordell put a for sale sign on her property and was trying to get money, earnest money, and promising to sell it to anybody who came along. One person I know of gave her $89. Another one gave her $150. She was scamming people. At that point, I think the city almost blocked my phone number. I drive Marshall crazy. I asked him if I would pay if he would have the sheriff do notices to the other 2. The Aunt Mary, who I was understood lived in Lake City, but I was unable to track down. And the uncle, the last time I could track him was in Milledgeville, Georgia, that I would pay, but I couldn't have the sheriff do it, but the city could. That didn't happen, which is why we have never found the other 2 people. And Mary does live somewhere in Columbia County, but I don't know where. We're at our wit's end. The health department, even though it is against all their codes, that's my fault, I'm sorry. And we have notified them. They keep telling us it's not our problem, it's the city's problem. The city, I love them to death. We need relief. And it's only with their assistance we can get that relief. Is there anything else I can tell you?
Do you have the address for the mother in Fort White?
I have furnished all that information to
It
Marcia.
should be in your packet. It's,
I think I even gave you a copy of the letter with a stamp on it from the post office. Cannot be
Yeah,
delivered
I've
at this
got it.
address.
let me find it here.
I drove by that property, by the way, in Fort White. It is almost as scary as the property here on Monroe Street.
The aunt, uncle, you believe the aunt is in Columbia County?
I believe she's in Columbia County.
The uncle is in Georgia.
The last time that I found his name, it was in Georgia.
Here's
Anything else, Ms. Gonzalez?
Anything you would like to know that I haven't mentioned? I could go on for hours, but we don't want to do that.
Mr. Silva, were you able to find?
Yeah, I was looking at the minimum standards, part of it.
I think I sent you the ordinances for both the state health department and the city on,
I've got the ordinance.
on environmental health, on
the city.
environmental health.
It's under that 505.1 general and the water system. That, kitchen sinks, laboratories, laundry facilities, bathtubs, and showers shall be supplied with hot or tempered and cold running water in accordance with the International Plumbing Code, which comes under the minimum housing standards. And the same thing with electricity, which is the 601.2 responsibility.
And we have not mentioned today, but all of the codes
Can I see this section?
refer to vermin and insects, which are just a breeding ground over there.
What about fire hazard? When it burns, mine will burn.
Mr. Silva, I do see where the 505.1 of the code does require the plumbing system to actually be supplied with water. So that I would agree that that would be in violation. I don't see, however, on the electrical where it requires, I mean, it does say to maintain the electrical facilities and equipment, but it doesn't say anything about actually being connected to the electrical. Although I'm not sure that that's.
I can't quote the code for you, but in order to have a CO on the property, which means it's livable, you must have a meter on it. You cannot get a meter put on it unless the city has certified it as occupiable. My first try on this, and the reason I know that, is because I begged the city to call Florida Power and remove the meter because it wasn't being used. I tried to have the meter removed and they said only the city can do that. That would remove the certificate of occupancy, which means the house is not capable of being lived in.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to continue the hearing to allow for the other property owners to be notified of the violations as well as the hearing. And I do think the city will be able to at least track down the mother and perhaps the aunt who's in Columbia County and bring these issues to their attention. And my hope is that they'll, and I will order, depending on the hearing and the evidence that I see, but if the property is still in the same state that it is today, I will require the owners to clean up the property, and if they don't clean it up, the property could be demolished and cleaned up by the city. So I don't want you to be disappointed in the hearing today, but I do think in fairness, because one of the property owners is only
We have
been
begged that they all be notified. I gave that information, the names, I gave copies of my letter, returned from the post office, when I had the post office return, and the mother's response to me, stating that she hadn't spoken with her brother and sister in years and didn't know where they were. I had tracked down the mother here in Columbia County, but I couldn't get an address or a phone number. The uncle, through Facebook, I tracked him to Milledgeville, Georgia. I could go no further. I volunteered to aid if the city would have the sheriff try to serve warrants. The sheriff has access, he can track people. I can't. I can't have the sheriff track them for me. The city could. That never occurred. We are at our wits' end. I understand exactly, and I agree. And if you want me to put together an amicus paper for the next time we meet, I will be happy to do so.
Ms. Georgelis, I appreciate your diligence and the city has the information from you. I'm not sure that the sheriff has to do anything that the city asked it to do, but certainly, I'm a practicing attorney and there are ways to locate people. I do it all the time to serve subpoenas, so I think the city will be able to locate these individuals and notify them of the violations and the hearing. And we'll schedule the hearing as soon as we can get those notices out and have this space available. And we'll also, I'll ask that the city notify you all of the hearing as well so that you can be present. And if you want to make sure that Mr. Silva has your addresses so that he can notify you.
Steve, how quickly do you think the city can get the tracking down?
All we can do is send out the letter, we'll get right on it.
Where are you gonna send the letters to?
So I'm saying we have.
What address you have on here? Where you
The
sent
other
to
two
mother?
I have been unable to track down. We have just heard from the magistrate that we can't have a follow-up hearing until all four have been served. How are we going to track down the two that I have been unable to find?
Well, she just said the mother and the aunt. Which one's the aunt?
Well,
Mary is the aunt.
and I would
Alice
ask,
is
and
the mother.
I'll issue an order to this effect, but the order is going to be that we're going to continue the hearing upon the city notifying all four property owners of the violations and the hearing. And Mr. Silva, I'll have you coordinate with our paralegal and she'll give you access to some resources to be able to do a people search so that you can find these individuals. Okay. And then we'll schedule the hearing, for the point at which you're able to actually serve these individuals, and then we'll coordinate schedules to get the hearing scheduled. I'll also ask again that the neighbors that are here today be notified of the hearing as well.
Did she want to be
Nancy,
notified?
you want to be notified at the next hearing?
That would be great.
Okay.
Nancy
That would
lives
be great.
behind her.
Yeah, if I could, I just live around the corner.
What's your last name?
Wozniak, Wozniak. Vicky's been notifying me of these things, but I can hear them arguing and,
Yeah. What's your address?
325 Southeast Church Ave. And I'm here to make sure something happens as well, because if this can't go on, I'm in fear for her right next door, you know?
Nancy, how do you spell your last name again?
Woz as in zebra, N is in Nancy, IAK. And I couldn't, if I were Mavis and Vicky, I couldn't even look at that house, I drive by it and, ugh. No sewer.
They're bags of waste.
Bags of waste, yeah.
Mattresses in the backyard.
Yeah, we took pictures last year.
Yeah.
And nothing became of it.
Anything further, Mr. Suba?
No ma'am.
Okay, so we will issue a written order in that regard and another hearing scheduled.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
We'll go ahead and end the hearing.